Straight ahead on Folks, can women cut it as cops? Well, we'll find out from 4 police women on their beats in Baton Rouge and Lafayette. Sonya Masingale talks one-on-one with State Representative Charles Jones of Monroe. And then we'll have a report on one of the hottest young chefs in New Orleans. I'm Rob Hinton. Those stories and more today on Folks.
Everybody says folks, just plain old folks. Everybody just people all over the world. Folks to live, folks got to give, folks got to care, ooh, folks got to share. Our world is small, so very small. What touches one of all, ooh, touches us all. To stay alive, just to survive, folks got to be in harmony. Everybody just folks, just plain old folks, just plain old folks. Everybody just folks, everybody just folks, just plain old folks, just plain old folks. Everybody just folks.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Folks. Topping off today's show, we'll be talking to 4 women in a non-traditional job. They are police officers, and even though we are seeing more and more women in police uniforms today, there is still that lingering question as to whether or not women can really cut it as cops. Meet Brenda Miceli, or maybe I should say Officer Brenda Miceli. You see, Miceli is a cop, now in her 6th year with the Baton Rouge Police Department.
I was a divorced mother of 2, and I needed a better paying job. So this was it. It paid almost twice what I made at my other job.
Miceli is one of 78 women serving on the Baton Rouge Police Force. Another is Barbara Butler, an 8-year veteran.
I thought about serving the community, making my contribution to society.
The police force in Lafayette is about 160 strong. 8 of the officers are women, like Terri and Bernadette Griffin.
Basically, what attracted me to police work is that I've always liked the leadership type role. And, you know, police officers' role, you know, you are the leader. You more or less, you know, guide the people that are going wrong. And I enjoy that position.
In '75, I wanted to be a police officer. And I think then it was just the interest and the interesting aspect of it and the challenge, okay? Then later on, I became a rape crisis counselor, mostly because I was molested as a child. And being in that aspect of it for a year, a rape crisis, I had a lot of contact with the police, and that's what really made me want to become a police officer later on.
Years ago, when women first expressed an interest in police work, the initial objections were they were too weak physically and couldn't handle the stress. Well, times and attitudes have changed, and women wearing police uniforms today are finding it easier to function in this predominantly male arena.
I've enjoyed it. So far, I've really enjoyed my job. I haven't run into any major problems or any difficulties with, you know, that I couldn't handle. Or if I ever came up on something I couldn't handle, there was always somebody that helped me.
I've been told many times I belong at home taking care of babies and cooking. I don't belong here. But those people are few and far between. That's mostly the older officers that tell you things like that.
It's challenging. It's not hard. I'm a type of person that can get along with anybody. And it's not hard for me. It really isn't. I have a good sense of humor, and I think that is one of the things you have to have.
Sooner or later, you knew you had to prove yourself. And sooner or later, you would prove yourself. And then you were able to establish a better relationship.
How has being a cop affected these women personally?
As far as friends, I think my friends kind of, you know, view me, they see me differently. And it's not that I treat them any differently, but it's just that I don't know if they're intimidated by me or what, but basically I still have the same friends that I've had. It's just that I don't see them as much and things like that. As far as family life, I'm not originally from Lafayette or from Louisiana. I don't have any relatives here. But everybody, you know, they pretty well accept me for what I am.
When I was working shift work, family life was almost non-existent. My kids were in bed, or they were at school, or they were somewhere else when I was at home. I've been assigned to a beat now that's straight days, and that is a big improvement. But police works hard on family life. It's very hard on it.
It's fun at times, depressing at times, interesting all the time, constantly changing. I have a husband and 2 kids at home. It's taken the point where he has to do a lot of work, but he's a good dad and a good husband, so he doesn't mind doing it. So he washes clothes and does all the stuff at home too. We do it 50-50.
Like Terri, many female cops patrol the streets, sometimes in a squad car, other times it's on foot talking to business owners. The job of a police officer is demanding, dangerous, and often thankless. Doubly so if you are a woman, because there are still a lot of people who aren't used to seeing women in uniforms.
It's like shock, you know, from some people at first. It's like, I can't believe it, you know, they have a woman police officer, but they're getting used to it.
Usually they like it. Some go, what are you doing here? You're a police officer? You know, the older people, you know. And then other ones, you know, guys especially, you want to arrest me? You know, they volunteer. But no problem, really.
Nowadays, it's quite common to see a female officer, and most people find that women are better at taking care of certain situations. They can understand things just a little bit better, and will take maybe a little bit more time than the male officer.
I've been on a lot of calls where if I had a male officer with me, I was totally ignored. I would have to step in and just take control of the situation to even to make my presence known. I have been just ignored on calls unless I would do that, simply because I was female and it's natural to look to the man to control something.
Which do you find more difficult to arrest, men or women?
Probably men. I think both male police officers and female police officers see that a lot of times the females are the ones that give a lot of problem, especially if they're intoxicated.
Most males are just harder to arrest because of the fact that they feel you are the weaker sex. But most of the time you can hold your own in a situation when it comes to arresting.
Women are generally nastier mouthed. They're verbally worse than men. If a man wants to fight with you, that's it. You know, you have to take your part. Women don't seem to fight as much as men.
To tell you the truth, I haven't had any problems arresting anybody. Everybody that I've arrested, for whatever reason that it has been, they've cooperated with me totally. They've given me no problems whatsoever.
How has being a police officer affected your life?
It's given me more of a leadership type role, you know, going back to your original question. It's made me a stronger person, and I have more confidence and belief in myself, you know, and I'm still me, though.
It's made me more of a person, a whole person. I just find it real challenging and interesting. I love digging. It lets you be nosy legally, you know, and it's fun, it's rewarding. You get to help people a lot, especially I like working with sex crimes and stuff like that. It's really rewarding because of the rape crisis background and my personal history too.
It's made me more aware of what goes on in the world. I apparently led a very sheltered life till I came to this job. My eyes have been opened a lot since then. I know I'm tougher on my kids now than I would be had I not come to this job.
Really? It makes you more aware of what's going on. You try and instill in your kids that certain things happen, certain times, be aware of certain things. And it just makes you look at life so much differently from what you would have done before, you know, without being a police officer.
Okay, time now for a question from the Folks Almanac. What was the name of the New Orleans hospital that was once the premier health care facility for blacks in the Deep South? We'll have the answer for you later in the program.
There are two men in the Louisiana House of Representatives with the same name. That common name is Charles Jones. Today we'll be talking to State Representative Charles Jones of Monroe. Jones, presently serving his second term in the legislature, is making some positive moves that just might improve the quality of life for all people here in Louisiana.
Born in Lake Providence, Louisiana, the 14th of 14 children, Charles Jones seems to have led a charmed life. Hard work, determination, and a strong family background have placed him in leadership roles from high school until his election to the Louisiana House of Representatives in 1979 and his re-election in 1983.
President of every class, college, president of every class, president of the student body, law school, president of the law school, on the city council while in law school. So I think that politics has been a part of my training for a long time. I think my interest in politics has been maintained by my interest in people. I genuinely like people, and I like being in a position to provide a service to people. The thing that pretty much keeps me moving is the fact that there are challenges to be met, and there are causes to be championed, and I consider myself to be somewhat of a fighter, and that keeps me moving, keeps it interesting, trying to make a difference.
Okay, what are some of the challenges and the causes that you feel you need to champion in your district?
Well, there are so many problems in Louisiana in general, and in certain communities in particular. There's still racism. There's still a high degree of poverty. There's still a high illiteracy rate, health care problems, all the social ills that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And there are so many people that could still fall into what Frantz Fanon called the wretched of the earth, that there's a lot of work to be done. And it's for those reasons that I think that I'm most interested in trying to provide some assistance. And we say in the Baptist church, if I can help somebody as I pass this way, then my living will not be in vain.
Jones's involvement in the Black Caucus has influenced a number of original and powerful bills. For example, the Louisiana Consent Decree for higher education.
We were at that point at a crossroads of education generally, and with respect to the black institutions of higher learning in particular, Southern University and Grambling State University. So as a result of negotiating the consent decree, it ensured the longevity of those institutions. And if you can perpetuate institutions like Southern University and Grambling State University, and not only enhance those institutions from the standpoint of finances and programmatic enhancements, but also to give them those exclusive programs, high demand, high cost programs that will have the effect of attracting other race students, white students. You accomplish a number of things. You integrate the higher educational system, while at the same time enhancing the traditionally black institutions where they have been historically deprived of the necessary resources.
Also on the list of Jones' achievement through the Black Caucus is the so-called African Bank Bill that he authored this past summer.
Could you tell us something about the African Bank Bill that you authored?
The African Development Bank was established in 1963. The federal government passed federal legislation allowing the African Development Bank, the United States, to participate. And this year, Louisiana, during this past legislative session, Louisiana becomes the 20th state to participate in the African Development Bank. And as author of that bill, I'm particularly pleased that we were able to get it passed. Senator Jefferson from New Orleans co-authored the bill and had one in the Senate, with Representative Delpit and Jetson co-authoring my bill in the House. But what that bill does, it allows for banks, savings and loans, and S&Ls to invest in economically depressed areas in Africa. that, in my judgment, will have a direct effect upon the poorest of poorest countries, because those are the only countries under the legislation that qualify. And it will also have an impact upon the starving people in Africa, because it will allow for investments, it will allow for technical assistance, it will allow for agricultural development, and in fact, under the consent decree for higher education, Southern University has a Center for Small Farm and Rural Research. So what I plan to do is to coordinate the Center for Small Farm and Rural Research with the African Development Bank, allowing for Southern University and Louisiana State University and Grambling State University and Louisiana Tech and some other state colleges and universities Northeast to provide technical assistance to the poorest of poor countries in Africa and alleviate some of the starvation.
What would you most like to change about the state of Louisiana?
The economic base of the average person. I'd like to create an economic system in the state where everybody could participate at least to the extent that their ability would allow them. That persons would not be unemployed, that 15% of our people or 12% of our citizenry would not be unemployed. I think if you can create an economic system where you have full employment as near as practicable, it will have a ripple effect, because people will be able to provide homes for their families. They'll be able to educate their children. They'll be able to provide adequately health care for themselves. The way they perceive themselves in the community, their own self-esteem will be heightened. The correlation between unemployment, economic deprivation, and incarceration will be reduced. If I could do one thing to change the problems in Louisiana, I think that would be the priority.
Representative Charles Jones of Monroe. Okay, time now to take a look at another folks flashback. In April 1983, folks retold the story of 4 black girls who integrated the New Orleans public school system in 1960. This is video from a ceremony honoring those 4 girls, now women, some 23 years later.
What's cooking in Louisiana? Well, it's an entirely new cuisine deeply rooted in America's past and blossoming in New Orleans with the help of a young, talented chef who is using the bounty of the area to produce irresistible regional fare. The Commander's Palace in New Orleans, one of the finest restaurants in the Crescent City. Commander's Palace is owned and operated by Ella and Dick Brennan. The executive chef is this man, 28-year-old Emeril Lagasse, a New Englander with a Portuguese background.
About 2.5 years ago, I was up north, actually in Massachusetts, on Cape Cod. And a good friend of mine, also a very good friend of the Brennan family, called from Atlanta, professional agency really dealing with professional chefs, people in the industry, and asked if I'd be interested in coming to New Orleans and to talk with the Brennan family. And definitely knowing their reputation for many years, I didn't hesitate at all. I took some time to do some things. We spent a lot of time on the telephone and coming to New Orleans, visiting with the Brennan family. And about 2.5 years ago, I joined the staff here at Commander's Palace, and it's been great.
Commander's Palace is a Creole restaurant. I'm just curious, how does a chef from the Northeast adapt to the Louisiana Creole style?
Commander's is a Creole restaurant. It's a Creole American restaurant. A lot of people ask me that, and my culture growing up, my mom is Portuguese, which very Spanish, Portuguese influence, like Creole cooking, and my father's French Canadian. Growing up in Massachusetts, cooking was always a part of the home. My mom's a fantastic cook and expresses a good part of her love with food, especially around the holiday times, family times. And when you really get into that and dig deep into that, that is what Creole people and Creole food is all about. It's a sharing of love. It's real. There's something real about it. There's substance to it. So when I came to New Orleans and tasted a lot of the food here, it resembled so much of home and my mom's food and the Portuguese culture too.
I've read that you're spending a lot of time refining and modernizing Creole dishes. Tell us what's involved there.
Well, what we've been doing at Commander's lately is we are researching a lot of the old dishes that have been around Louisiana for a long time and refining them, lighten them up. We've taken, like our gumbo, we've taken the roux out of our gumbo and rely simply on evaporation from the stock, natural stock, and the filet powder from, the sassafras leaves. A lot of our sauces, we're not using any roux in our sauces. We're using natural reductions based on purification and evaporation, keeping it very natural. I think we are doing a better job daily finding the best possible and freshest possible product, mostly indigenous locally to Louisiana, and just doing a lot of things with that. But that's what we've been doing a lot of lately. A good many dishes on our new menu resemble that of our research and refinement, and hopefully we just keep the process going.
Lagasse can be described as one of the new breed of American chefs. He began his career at a very young age.
I started when I was 10 years old. I started in a local Portuguese bakery in Massachusetts. At 10, after school, washing pots and pans. From there, I guess I was about 12, and I started baking. I had an opportunity to bake and began baking and loved it. And I did that for about 4 or 5 years and realized that there was a lot more to the industry than just baking. I wanted to be a pastry chef, and then I said, wait a minute, there's a lot more to it. So I started working in some local restaurants under some very talented chefs and really just became fascinated and in love with it. And I just kept expanding on that and working hard and growing and really trying to refine daily and research daily and did an awful lot of reading. Then I went to culinary school. And then from there, I left home at an early age, went to the big cities, Philadelphia, New York, and really just started working under some great chefs and learning.
Recently, Lagasse was among 5 hot new American cuisine chefs at a national symposium in San Francisco. His popular quail with bacon fig stuffing recipe was praised by the nation's top food writers, restaurateurs, and chefs.
I was chosen with 4 other chefs, there were 5 of us, to represent the National Livestock Council at the American Symposium in Food and Wine, which is a yearly sort of our foodie convention. The 5 chefs were to create 3 dishes using ham, bacon, or sausage. The dish that was chosen at the gala dinner, which was on board the city of San Francisco, beautiful ship, was a quail that was wrapped in bacon. It had a bacon fig stuffing and was served cold, believe it or not, and finished with a cold port wine and fig sauce. I think good reason for that is I look at Louisiana and I see the abundance of figs, the abundance of quail, and bacon is something that most Americans have grown up with, like sausage and like ham. So I couldn't see why I shouldn't do something.
But quail with bacon fig stuffing isn't his only specialty. He has many more.
I do a lot of nice pastries here that we bake on premise. I think some of our specialties right now, we have a shrimp and andouille sausage dish with angel hair pasta that's on a dinner menu that's been very, very well received. We have a new menu that has just gone into effect in the last, let's say, like 3 weeks ago. That's a new dish. We have a quail dish that's with a Creole stuffing of crab meat and shrimp that the customers are really have gone crazy for. We serve it with a fried tomato, a fresh corn relish. We look at a lot of other products that are really indigenous to the Gulf Coast. The redfish, the pompano, whatever is as fresh as possible I can get my hands on is really what we try to do something with. but we're constantly changing and constantly seeking all the time for greater products.
So what is a typical day like for Lagasse at Commander's? Well, I can tell you that it is nothing like working from 9 to 5.
Day usually starts between 9:30, 10:30. I come in, check with my staff, make sure everybody's healthy and everyone's doing fine. Get with the food buyer and really communicate on what's going on daily, because the market changes so daily with fresh products, game, seafood, vegetables, produce. From there we get ready and get open for lunch, and good part of my job is to taste things in the kitchen. Go around, we have a taste session, and do lunch. After lunch is really a time I spend a lot of time communicating and getting things ready and ongoing for the future. And then it's we have a change of staff and we get ready for dinner. My day ends usually about 10 or 11 o'clock. But it doesn't seem like that. It's just it's fulfilled, a lot of fun. Dealing with people is an exciting thing. It's constant.
One final question. When do you know that you have done a good job?
I feel that I've done a good job when I can go and go into the dining room or walk customers outside to their automobile at the end of their dinner or lunch experience, and when they say to me, that was the best meal that I've had in a long, long time. I mean, that's when it's fulfilled for me. To see their happiness upon departure, to see my staff expressed and fulfilled on what they've accomplished and they have done. And then myself, I think the most exciting thing is to get up in the morning, come to work, and try to do it a little bit better than yesterday.
Chef Emeril Lagasse. If you get a chance, check him out at Commander's Palace in New Orleans. Okay, time now to answer today's question from the Folks Almanac. The question is, what was the name of the New Orleans hospital that was once the premier health care facility for blacks in the Deep South? The answer is Flint Goodrich Hospital, which closed its doors in May of this year. That's our program for this week. Thanks for watching. Next week, a report on Project Self-Sufficiency in Shreveport and jazz great Ellis Marsalis in New Orleans. See you then. Bye-bye.